Recently, I got to read an arc of A Land So Wide by Erin A Craig, and by the time this review comes out, and most likely the book will be out. But I highly recommend people read it because it is truly exceptional of a book. Though I will admit I am extremely biased because Erin A Craig is one of the insta-buy authors for me. But every time I read one of her books, it just solidifies more and more why she's an insta-buy author. And one of the reasons is that I strongly believe she's a type of writer that you should not only physically read her books, but also listen to. Like when I physically read her books, I am just mesmerized by her word choices. The descriptions, like for example, this one description early in A Land So Wide is rocky cliffs grew steeper, forming forbidding granite mountains. Black flies and mosquitoes festered, swarming and hungry for flesh to feast upon. Blood-curdling cries were carried upon fierce and howling winds. At night, the sky burst into shimmery flames that danced silently across the dark void. It's there are other ones that I feel much more emotional, but like that just conjures the gothic elements of her story, which goes into why you should listen to it too, because she is exceptional at creating atmosphere. She has a history of working in like plays and sets and things like that. So she knows how to set up her stories where it draws these emotions from you. So when I listen to her stories, I'm always on the edge of my seat and like feeling the tensity of it, feeling like I am myself in the dark, scary room because her stories are a mix of gothics and fairy tales. She creates this fun twist that creates these familiar fairy tale stories and familiar tropes of gothic, but somehow makes them feel so extremely new and unique. And that's one of the other reasons why I love her. But getting into A Land So Wide, a brief synopsis is that our main character Greer is living in a frontier community up in Upper Canada, so it takes place during that time. And once every 7 years, the community has this hunt. So it's where all the girls of marriageable age go and hide, and then the boys of marriageable age go and hunt them. It sounds strange. It's a strange tradition, but we also have to remember that this is a frontier community with no connection to outside people. And when you're in situations like that, you need to figure out ways to continue your population, but make it like digestible. And when it comes to this time, her and her love, Ellis, have been in love for so long. They've waited years to finally participate in the hunt and be married and have their own home and family and stuff like that. But Ellis then is sacrificed to the bright eyes, these monsters terrorizing their community. And Greer is determined to go find him and goes out into the woods in search of him. However, along the way, she finds out the truths about herself, about her community, about these monsters, and about so much more. As I've already stated, Erin A. Craig is very good at her settings, and I was so excited to see that this book was going to be taking place in another frontier community because her other book, Small Favorites, is one of my favorites. I love that frontier community because it creates such a great setting for Gothics that is and isn't used as much as I think it should be because you have this setting of isolation. You're in a community, it's just you guys surrounded by wilderness of the unknown, of the dark nature, and you're so far from other communities to get help from. So it's just you and your community depending on each other. There's this air of desperation to succeed mixed with this underlying current of greed that first led you to this place, led you to go move from your original homes and try this out. And that combination creates this underlying tension and current that can bubble up and fester. And you see it not only in Small Favors, but you see it here. But what I like here is also that Erin and Craig really digs into the themes of man versus nature, which is something I am currently hyperfixating on thanks to the Hunger Games and also like Wuthering Heights. It is a theme that is very common in the Romanticism era of writing, which I talk about when I'm talking about the Hunger Games and talking about when I'm talking about Wuthering Heights. It is coming out of the ideas of the Enlightenment, of being able to know everything and control everything. Again, themes we see, for example, in Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. That's why we have Frankenstein trying to talk about the hubris, a man thinking that they can know and control all. That's what Wuthering Heights is talking about, and you see it here. That is the central theme, is that they are trapped in the middle of the wilderness. They are surrounded. They are literally imprisoned by these stones that are supposedly meant to keep them safe from these monsters. and yet they're in the prison themselves. And this, you can't control nature. That is the theme. You can't control nature. You can't control everything, despite man thinking that they can commandeer and own everything. That is the downfall of man, but also man's need to know, label, and control everything. And if we cannot do it, then we create monsters out of it. That we then create these falsities out of these things. And there's a line towards the end about the truth not being the truth, that you kind of twist it to then become digestible. So there's a lot about this story that feels very reminiscent to The Village by M. Night Shyamalan. Again, like, it just creates these very delicious atmosphere. The man versus nature theme is also continued with the fairy tale aspect that she's using, while the story does not have it very plain, I would say, even though none of her stories are exceptionally plain, but you can eventually figure out what fairy tale she's inspired by. She's used 12 Dancing Princesses, Rumpelstiltskin, Blackbeard. There's so many, Godfather Death, like so many you could tell. This one I couldn't pinpoint an exact fairy tale, but you can tell there's an amalgamation of Scottish folklores and mythical creatures being used with, especially the bright-eyed monsters. And the thing that makes them exceptionally eerie and scary in this book is that they're not exactly one, or at least not one I'm familiar with, going into then man's need to label, to know, to control. Because I don't know and label and understand this creature, it's an amalgamation of so many, it then becomes scarier because it's unknown to me. And I love also this conversation of who's truly the monsters, going into also who's better for the environment kind of thing, like who's treating the environment better, who thinks that, like, they can be the, apex of this environment. There's so many things to unpack with this book. I am getting very lengthy in this review, but overall, I just love this book. I think it was exceptional. While this is Erin A Craig's first adult book, I would say the tone of it didn't feel too different from her YA books, but her YA books don't feel very young themselves. There's a slight shift in the themes. Like, the others felt a little bit more coming of age, while this one does too, but in a more older sense. Like, when you read it, you see what I mean. I think it could have gone darker, it could have gone deeper, it could have been longer, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, I highly enjoy it. As you can tell, I've been talking about this forever. I love picking it apart. And as I previously said, she is one of my favorite authors. She writes so beautifully, creates such fun narratives. And like I said, I highly recommend also listening to them because they will get you in that spooky mood. They are truly atmospheric. Like, her writing style is one of my favorites to just pick apart and read. I think she does a great job, and I cannot wait to see what she puts out next. I do know that she is putting out a Phantom of the Opera kind of story in 2026, so I'm very excited to see what that is. I believe she has another story to go with the sisters from the Salt and Sorrow series. I love the sequel. I cannot wait to see what sister is going to be talked about next and what fairy tale she plans to use. Overall, highly recommend her books. Recommend this book, especially. I love the frontier aspects. Like I said, it creates such a great atmosphere and dynamics and chaos to it. So if you're still here, please add this book to your TBR.